Hey Madden fans, welcome to the Around the NFL Madden studio. I'm Ricky Hollywood, and the two other guys you see on screen right now are Mark Sessler and Chris Wessling from the Around the NFL podcast, which can be found on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to your pods. All right, you guys, we're 1 week into the 2020 season, right? The Chiefs, 49ers, Ravens are all 0-1. Who says 0 anymore? That's how crazy this
Well,
is.
you're bringing it back into play, and I like that.
Yeah, so they're all 0-1. I mean, that's kind of crazy, don't you think?
That is wild. Something we never would have expected. In fact, you look at some of those teams and you think they're by far the best team in their division. They have to be the favorites.
Right.
And don't we naturally overreact to week one to the point where you change everything you think about the season? But it was surprising to see the Saints lose 17-0 to the Bucs, and suddenly my suspicions about Tampa Bay are kind of going away minute by minute here.
Yeah, I mean, even Kansas City lost a heartbreaker to the Texans in week one. I mean, that's crazy, but do you think they'll still win the AFC West?
Well, if I remember correctly, they lost to the Texans during the season last year and still won the AFC West. So 1 week, not everything. I think they'll bounce back.
I'm with you. It's such a long, grueling campaign, and I would be kind of shocked if there weren't some surprises early on after the offseason that we all went through. But they only scored 7 points, so the Chiefs, and you can't blame it on a Mahomes injury this time around, have to get the kinks out.
All right, well, let's go through our division winners, and we can start with you, Wes. Where do you think that we're going to fall after this 2020 season?
Well, I'm still picking the Chiefs to win the AFC West. I know that's the most loaded division in football. The Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders are all much better this year than they were a year ago. But to me, the Chiefs, there's not always clarity, but there's clarity that Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL, and this is the best team.
Well, I have to, I'd like to make a surprising pick here, but the Chiefs to me feel like the safest bet because you start with the coaching, you start with the quarterback, and it's like all the guys that were there a year ago are essentially there again with added firepower at the running back position. So I'm with Wes. This is a safe bet. Kansas City. Who do you got for the other three divisions, Wes?
I like the Colts in the AFC South. I think that they picked the right quarterback, knowing they had a good offensive line, and they needed some difference makers. They needed some guys who are going to explode and give them big plays every week. And Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, they got those guys. This team is better than they were. I think they're the most talented team in the division.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of seeing them as a playoff team. I have Tennessee winning that division just because I still I like what they did in the offseason to kind of keep everything together, and I love the coaching staff there too. I was stuck on the AFC East a little bit because the Patriots person in me still struggles with the idea of them totally stinking up the joint. But I gave the AFC East, which is a pretty bad division, and there may be some inflated records for the better one or two teams in there, to Buffalo. I think Buffalo is going to pull that one out.
I agree with you there. And the Patriots, this is a team that had a worse record than the Miami Dolphins from Halloween through the end of the season. And when you look at teams that disappoint, it's usually the ones with questions at quarterback. And I have no confidence that Jared Stidham is going to be the answer in year one as the starter.
I mean, the Dolphins beat the Patriots in week one. That's kind of crazy.
Convincingly.
I'm excited to watch the Dolphins this year. It's going to be pretty interesting, especially to see what they did with how they handled last year with all the pieces that they've added after the draft this year. It's going to be a totally different organization.
Yeah, you could see an accelerated jump. But I mean, if week one is any indication, that Miami may not be wait another 2 years for them to. I see them as a potential playoff team right now.
I mean, the Jets are 1-0 too.
Well, they beat Buffalo, so that stuck a fork in my prediction pretty quickly.
I'll believe that when I see it at the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll see.
What about the North? I still believe Baltimore in a really loaded division. I mean, barring injuries, I don't know how to make a really strong argument for another team in the AFC North.
Well, I don't know if it's a strong argument, but you know how, Mark, sometimes you get intuition and feelings. I have that feeling about the Browns. Huh. And, sometimes Super Bowl contenders get sidetracked, and the Ravens may have the best roster in the division, but the Browns roster is nothing to sneeze at. It's right up there, just as much talent on offense. We'll see about the defense, but that front seven looks pretty good.
Look at their showing from week one.
The Browns, to me...
They beat Baltimore.
you're going to tell me that a guy like Odell Beckham isn't one of the most talented players in the league just because he's coming off a down season?
Yeah, I'm with you. They should be a playoff team based on the talent, or as you mentioned in your offseason offensive rankings, Wes. There'd be a lot of finger pointing going on there because it's wasted talent if they're not anything less than 10-6. It's a new coaching staff, but they seem to be a detailed coaching staff, which is the polar opposite of the. I think we'd love to go to the Cozy Inn up the street from NFL Network with Freddie Kitchens, but I don't know if I need him designing game plans for me at this point.
Well said.
All right, so let's go over to the NFC. The reigning conference champion 49ers are winless after 1 week. So do you think they'll find their way back, to the top of the NFC West?
They're too good not to, and the coaching is too good not to. This is the best offensive coach in the game, and he has been for a while. So I think the 49ers figure that out, and they're too strong to fall down there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have Seattle winning that division, but just because I could see them with the same record and being a tiebreaker, I have total faith that the Niners will get back into the playoffs and may not be in that different of a situation than Seattle.
Yeah. I mean, also, the Packers took down the Vikings in week 1. Is that a shock to you guys, or do you kind of expect that to continue?
Not a shock to me. I think that people are kind of sleeping on the Packers because of all the hubbub during the offseason. But to me, they were the best team in that division last year, and they haven't lost enough talent to not be the best team this year.
I'm with you. I mean, the drama around Aaron Rodgers kind of goes away when the games start, and it's inconceivable to bench him right now for a newbie. The coaching staff is gonna go with the ground game. I think we're gonna see that theme throughout these early weeks, especially probably from a bunch of teams after a really weird offseason. But I would trust Green Bay over anything the Vikings are doing right now.
Okay, and so over to the East. Is this the division for the Cowboys to lose again?
I was saying that all last year, and I'm going to stick to it. I think they're a team that was much better than their record. I thought they had the strongest roster in the league last year, and while people are sleeping on them, this is their year. Mike McCarthy might get some of that Coach of the Year buzz.
I'm with you. You've added CeeDee Lamb. If you look at Cleveland's offense, you could look at Dallas's offense too on paper and say, what's not to like? I mean, we all know the defense could use a few extra people in there, but they're in a division that is a raging trash heap outside of the Eagles going into the year.
Yeah, we kind of touched on it at the beginning, but in the NFC South with the Bucs, they beat the Saints handedly. And I mean, the Saints are winless after week 1. Like, is this Drew Brees' last season? Like, is this his decline? Where do you guys come down on those Saints?
I think the Saints do have some question marks with age, and it starts right there with Breeze. So I wouldn't surprise me if the Bucs continue to ride this momentum from week 1 and never stop. That maybe it's just a charmed year for Bruce Arians' outfit.
Yeah, it feels like it. And, had they been the team that lost 17-0, I think you'd be wondering if they're a team on paper, but they just seem to have so much fun in that game itself. And Arians and Brady are just kind of vibing off each other, and all the stuff we've heard about how they work together is a huge positive. And the Saints have been through 3 terrible playoff losses, just hideous 3 in a row. And it's like, that does eventually take a psychological toll. I wouldn't have expected that to be the case with New Orleans, but week 1 disaster.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, let's move on to the award races. So let's start with the rookies here. Who will win Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I'm going to stick with my Colts and go with Jonathan Taylor, the running back, who I thought was the best running back in the draft. And behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, I think that 4.39 speed is going to just be a difference maker right off the bat and through the season.
Yeah, I love that pick, Wes. I guess unless Marlon Mack were used in more of a timeshare situation, it just doesn't seem that's in the plans right now. I'm going to go Joe Burrow, and I know it's the safe pick, but I just think that if he lasts through 16 games, and I think the Bengals can be frisky. If they can go, even 8-8, and Burrow does what people expect, it's not that I think that he would necessarily be the best rookie in the class year 1, but the awards, and Wes knows I have some issues with some of these awards, they just tilt quarterbacks. So I'd have to think that if Burrow shows up, he's gonna get the votes.
What if Tua shows up and totally outplays Fitzpatrick, and then Miami's the talk of the town?
That could happen. I just see Fitzpatrick as a guy who he saved their season last year from being where everyone accused them of tanking to where they actually surprised some people. And he's sort of what you want to hold the fort until Tua's ready.
Yeah, I guess it just depends how many games Tua would play. But, I mean, again, I'd always go quarterback over anything else.
Okay, how about defensive player of the year?
Defensive rookie of the year. Chase Young, I think you have to bet on that talent, but I will give you a surprise one. We saw what the Buccaneers did, shutting out the Saints with young Antoine Winfield. This is a team that's going to be on national TV quite a bit. They're going to be a story, and Antoine Winfield will be a story because his father played, and a lot of times that's how these awards are given out. Who has the best story? I like him.
I like that a lot. I think someone to watch. I don't think he's in the right defense necessarily for this to allow to happen. Isaiah Simmons would be someone in Arizona just because he sort of seems to be a highlight reel, flashy type guy. But I'm going to go with a bit of a surprise in Patrick Queen from the Ravens because I just essentially would, any possession that I have, I would bet that a Ravens rookie being plugged into Baltimore's defense will probably just win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Okay, what about not rookie? What about just total, defensive player of the year?
Seems like it's still in that group. I mean, I'd go Aaron Donald. I think that he doesn't look to have lost a step.
I would take Aaron Donald and give everyone else the field just because he's that much better.
Yeah. What about comeback player of the year?
But here's what I think is going to happen there. And, I know that this Madden universe that we're in updates as it needs to throughout the year. And I think we're going to lose a quarterback at some point potentially. And you get Cam Newton in there, and he's going to have a fantastic second half of the season for someone and, take them the distance into the playoffs, and it's going to be the feel-good story of the year. The guy that couldn't get a job when the Jaguars went and signed Mike Glennon, Cam Newton rolling around unemployed, comes back in sort of mid-season. There is no award more narrative-driven, and we have to the point where we have no idea what a comeback player of the year is at this point, but it would be Newton if he pulled that off.
I love that pick. That's very creative. We've got a lot of candidates. Gronk, Big Ben, Todd Gurley. But the guy teaming up with Mark's pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year, A.J. Green coming back. And as far as we know, he's still a number one receiver. Still can get it done. His feet haven't cooperated. But I like Joe Burrow is going to go straight for him. That's going to be his go-to target right off the bat. And I like the Bengals to surprise some people this year.
That would help my Offensive Rookie of the Year argument if you're getting the comeback player of the year on the other end of those passes, Wes.
Yeah, I noticed, too, after week 1 that Mitchell Trubisky was playing, he threw 3 interceptions, and it's like, when are they going to make the switch to Foles? And when and if they do, maybe he totally lights, Chicago on fire, and I don't necessarily believe that could happen. Wes, I know you're shaking your head because it's Nick Foles, but I feel like that would be the time to go from Super Bowl MVP to injured sort of no-name letdown in Jacksonville to all of a sudden taking Matt Nagy's team and totally making them worth talking about again.
Well, that could happen as soon as week 2. We after Brian Hoyer got benched at halftime of the season opener one year, I think quarterback changes can happen as soon as possible in any season.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I just mentioned Matt Nagy. I don't necessarily think he's going to be the coach of the year. How about you guys? Do you think if Belichick pulls off a 12-4 season that he'll get that award, or is that not possible?
I mean, I feel like Belichick should have won it. Everyone feels this way, 8 or 9 times, when what they're looking for is, again, the story. Who took a bad team and turned them into a good team? Those guys seem to get the votes. For me, I guess it's more flashy to go pick someone out of deep space. But Bruce Arians, who wasn't in football a couple years ago, and if this fun joyride continues, I mean, it would have a lot to do with Bruce Arians because you got a lot of personalities in that locker room, and being able to turn the Bucs into something interesting to watch, which has not been the case for so long. I mean, he would get my vote if I had one.
Well, that would be amazing to win Coach of the Year with 3 different franchises. Starting out with the Colts, then the Cardinals, and now the Bucs. And he's on my list, too, as an obvious guy whose stock is going to raise throughout the season. And I'm going to go all in on my Colts here. Frank Reich, who I think he's only been there 2 years. He's proven to be one of the best coaches in the NFL. Not just with the way he runs his offense, but the way he runs that organization.
I would throw one more out there. I mean, Brian Flores, who could have gotten a vote or two the year before for kind of how he held the team together. I just think this is like an 11-5 team maybe, and they seem to be, is there a year or two swoon from Flores? It doesn't appear to be the case, and he'd be a pretty juicy winner as well.
Okay, so before we get out of here, let's do MVP and Super Bowl. Who do you think is going to be the MVP of the league, and who's playing in the Super Bowl?
I'm in on the Browns, and this is my out of left field MVP pick. Odell Beckham, MVP.
Really?
I think he's the most talented wide receiver in the NFL. He has been since the day he stepped foot in the NFL, and I think we're going to see that come through this year.
Wow, I love that. I mean, that would almost make him, even though statistically it wouldn't make a lot of sense, a bit of a comeback player of the year himself, because the year before was just there's so much negative energy. I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes, because I just think we're going to get a guy that's going to win it like 4 times in 6 years. I mean, sort of like, J.J. Watt did that he was on track to do that, and I see that with Mahomes.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with both of you. It's too hard. MVP, I think it's going to go to Mahomes. I don't think that anyone's going to unearth the Chiefs now. They are the superpower in the NFL, and I think it's going to be a while. I think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have a chance of sort of being those contenders, but it's going to be a good season. Really looking forward to it. It's pretty cool. That's great, guys. So we all know the Chiefs are going to win it again. We all agreed on that for the Super Bowl. So that's good.
Wait,
that's
what?
good. Yeah, exactly. That wraps it up for us today, you guys. Make sure you check out the Around the NFL podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I'm going to go work on my Madden score. I'm a 99. I think you guys are 57. So we're going to get back
50s.
in that.
That's
Yeah,
age, not Madden score.
Yeah, so we'll catch up with you soon, and make sure you check back here for updates.